What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Jenks Island Podcast, the only NFL podcast we can get your takes from a washed-up Division III quarterback and his friends. I'm your host, Grayson Jenkins, joined again by my great friend and co-host, Sterb. And in today's episode, we're going to be giving our divisional breakdowns for both the NFC and AFC South. Last year, we did these. We went through. We were going to rank every single division on top of one another by the end of these 4 episodes. And then we're going through each division, ranking each team, each position, so quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, O-line as a group, and then the defense as a whole, and then saying which teams, giving our team rankings as well within the division. So, Sturb, this is going to be a lot of fun. All 4 episodes. We got the South first, I think the East second, next week, and then the West, then North. So, a lot of fun to look out for you guys, the viewers out there. But starting off, we're going to look at the AFC South as our first division. Starting off with the teams, I think everyone will agree that the Texans are on top, and I think it's very, very lopsided of why they're at the top. I think their defense single-handedly is just levels above any other unit in this division, and I think that really does boost that team up so much, even given the fact that their O-line might not be the greatest, and CJ Stroud is your quarterback, who last year did struggle at times, and we talked about that in our quarterback breakdown episode. CJ Stroud didn't play like we had seen him in the past. And I think that's the pressure kind of accumulating and getting to his head more and more and more. You see his fundamentals kind of fading away later into the season. And that really did hurt to see. But the Texans defense really does level them up a lot. And I do think that they'll still be a contender, at least in the AFC playoff as that goes. I have the Jaguars at number 2, Sturb. Yes, they lost a couple pieces, especially on the offside. Losing Achane, that running back room got depleted a little bit. And we'll talk about that. But I think as a team, I think the Jaguars are still pretty solid, and you still have Trevor Lawrence there. Third, I have the Titans. I think that will surprise some people. I think they're a young team, but I like the additions they made across the offseason, across both sides of the ball. And then fourth, I do have the Colts, because I think with the Daniel Jones injury situation, you're kind of banking on him coming back and being healthy to possibly carry you up, like lift up your team. But outside of that, I think they're a little bit iffy. Anthony Richardson, maybe he comes in. What's his name? I'm blanking on their backup quarterback, the rookie last year. Yes. I think Riley Leonard, like, he came in, showed a little bit of ability, right? I have him in Dynasty, actually. One of my leagues, I was like, okay, this is a guy that I feel comfortable about having on my bench. But at the same time, he's not lifting up your team by himself, I don't think. And you don't have Phillip Rivers anymore to come in and save the team. So I have them at 4th, but Sturb, I want to hear your thoughts. What are your rankings for the teams?
Yeah, so similarly, I'm going to have the Texans at 1. I do think it's maybe a little closer with them with the Jags than consensus would say. Like I'm higher on the Jags. I still think the Texans are a probably top 4-ish team in the AFC. Like I do expect them to kind of just win this division because the range of outcomes on offense is pretty wide, but on defense, you pretty much expect this to be a top 3 minimum best defense in the league. And nothing has really changed there besides adding on the interior, which is kind of like the last infinity stone they were missing. So I'll be really excited to see how that plays out in terms of like kind of just like a Death Star unit on that side of the ball.
Yeah.
And then, last year we did see like some struggles from Stroud, but I do think like if you take the entirety of his career, it has been probably more promising or middling instead of just pure bad, which he showed at times last year. And they added some to the run game in terms of like efficiency. Hopefully you can get some success rate out of Dave Montgomery, because they have been lacking in success rate for Stroud's entire career. They're consistently bottom. I think since Stroud has entered the league, I want to say the stat is they're like 3% lower than the 31st ranked team in success rate, which is pretty unbelievable. And they're like 8 or 9% below average, which is it is terrible. But anyways, I think their defense can kind of carry them. Jags, like you mentioned, lost some pieces, but I kind of do just expect year 2 in this Liam Cohen offense to look really, really good. Mm-hmm. We saw T-Law kind of play up to his potential that he's been, kind of hoped to have lived up to coming into his career. And he's, pretty far into it now, but we see quarterbacks develop late all the time. The only difference is that like T-Law was good enough to not get benched. Like, is it that crazy that you can win a Super Bowl with him? Absolutely not. We just saw it happen with a guy who was a third string. So T-Law, I'm still bought in on him as a prospect. And then that weapons room, I think, is really, really good.
Yep.
The running back room, we'll get into it, but I think it's pretty bad. It's got to be one of the worst in the league. So we'll see how that works. If anyone can make it work, it is Liam Cohen. So I'm kind of curious to see how it works. And then, yeah, third, I am going to have the Colts. They've shown the ability to, kind of just be a juggernaut at some points last season. You have one of the best running backs in the league. You have a very efficient quarterback when he's playing well and healthy. I know he's coming off the injury, but I don't think he's going to be, the same Daniel Jones that we saw at his worst in New York, even if he does come back from the injury. I don't think he's going to be what he showed to be last season at the beginning. Probably somewhere in between those two. And then on defense, I think they're okay. I mean, they're probably around like 23rd best defense in the NFL or something like that. Titans, like, I like the story. I really do like Cam Ward. I like watching him play a lot. There's not really any sort of tangible evidence that you can point to with Cam Ward other than, the throws that he makes and the plays that he's making on the field. But in terms of like counting stats, advanced stats, it's all pretty terrible for Cam Ward. He finally gets some help here with Cardinal Tate. Dable, I'm not like too bought in on him as an offensive mind, so we'll kind of see how that works. But it's not enough to move them above the Colts for me.
No, I think that's fair. And I will say this: I think the Colts are kind of like a cockroach almost in terms of they didn't die last year, and I kind of thought they were gonna like die when like as soon as the wheels started falling off the wagon, they still kind of had some fight. And I think maybe this year, yes, you have to deal with Daniel Jones, right, coming out from injury to maybe start your season, but if you start it and you kind of just stabilize the season with like a win or a couple games, it depends on how long he's out. If he's out 4 games and you win maybe 1 or 2 of those, like you're at least solid enough to where he can come in and play well for your team and survive the season. So.
I will say with the Colts as well, like when they've had backup level quarterback play, they really haven't been that bad in terms of win and loss record. Like even with Anthony Richardson, they weren't really that bad of a team. I want to say they're around an even record. They were a drop away 3 years ago from making the playoffs with Gardner Minshew as the starter for pretty much the entire season. And Alec Pierce has developed since then. You lose Michael Pittman from that year. But, like last year when we were kind of doing the overrated and underrated for teams, I mentioned that like, the Colts are kind of just there every year. And if they do something, it's kind of gravy. If they have like 5 wins at any season, I am going to be a little surprised, especially this year too. Like Riley Leonard, for what he was, I think he stepped in and was actually pretty good for that game. I think
he showed flashes.
He didn't really get taken that seriously because he was after Philip Rivers, who's kind of a joke. They're like, oh yeah, now you're on to this guy. Like you watch that game, and I think he played for a game and a half. He was pretty solid. I don't think he's going to be better than Daniel Jones or anything, at least stepping in. But the Colts just kind of stay afloat in terms of like a season-long projection.
Yeah.
So I don't think they'll bottom out or anything.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at too. Is I think, the reason I put the Titans above them is because I think they have a higher, not necessarily like a higher ceiling, as in they're going into the playoffs or anything like that. But they're a team that, with all of these additions they made in the offseason, they're definitely ascending, and they could be a team that like at the end of the season you're going into next year saying, look out for the Titans as a team to possibly compete in the AFC next season as like a playoff team, not necessarily as a Super Bowl contender or anything like that. But anyways, moving on to quarterbacks here, Sterb. The 4 quarterbacks: Trevor Lawrence, Daniel Jones, Cam Ward, CJ Stroud. Starting off, I got Trevor Lawrence. Like you said, I think he really started to play towards the level of what we expected from him with Liam Cohen coming in and kind of being able to coach him up in that new offensive scheme. He started to ascend. You saw him use his legs a little bit more, and he actually looked more confident in using his legs and also making plays on the move from the quarterback position. At number 2, I'm going to put CJ Stroud. I do still believe that, like you said, I think CJ Stroud is solid enough that if they just have a step up a little bit in the offensive line, in the run game, things like that, you're taking a little bit of weight off his shoulders. I think he's a good enough quarterback to at least make some good plays, and he's shown that last season on top of all the bad plays that he's made and the fundamentals kind of falling away a little bit. Third, I have Cam Ward on my list above Daniel Jones just because of the injury. I think Daniel Jones, might take a step back, like you said, and kind of be in that not bad, but not also above average, kind of just in that average to like slightly below average range. Whereas Cam Ward, I think when you give him a guy like Carnell Tate and you Wandale Robinson in addition to Calvin Ridley, I think that you have at least enough weapons around him to succeed. And Brian Dable, like you said, he might not be the greatest offensive scheme mind as a whole, but I think he's kind of become like a quarterback whisperer at some of the places he's gone. He's been able to kind of make young quarterbacks better, and I think he should be able to do that with Kim Ward as well. So give me Kim Ward at 3 and then Daniel Jones at 4, coming off an injury. What are your thoughts on the quarterback position?
Yeah, I would agree with the rankings here. And you can go back and look at our quarterback rankings. We talked about these guys for like, I don't know, felt like 5 or 6 hours. It was a great time.
Wow.
But yeah, Trevor Lawrence really honing in that efficiency over the back half of this past season, like I mentioned. Probably a lot of that was getting finally a purely reliable receiver in Jacoby Myers. Feel like he really unlocked a lot in that offense. Trevor Lawrence, probably some of it has to do with how they're charted and also just how he throws and places the ball, but he consistently ranks at the top of drop passes pretty much every season since he's entered the league. Jacoby, just solid vet. You can set your watch to him, and I think that type of player has been missing from Trevor Lawrence's life for a long time now. Yeah, and we saw that come to fruition last year. CJ Stroud, yeah, we we kind of had a debate. So I'll save my words on that, but I do think he's put in more tough positions than pretty much any other quarterback. Like we mentioned, that run game being abysmal, for lack of a better word, for the Texans over the past 3 years. It doesn't really stop them from running the ball on early downs. They kind of do it, and then they're like, "It's 3rd and 7, it's 3rd and 8. Stroud, go do something." And then, when you're getting rushed on 3rd and 7 and 3rd and 8, and your offensive line isn't that good, like you're prone to take some sacks, you're prone to take some negative plays, and those aren't just like one-off things. Those are cumulative. Like they start to get in your head, and you could really see that with Stroud over the back half of last season. And then these 3 and 4 guys, or guys at 3rd and 4th, Cam Ward and Daniel Jones, I think they might have been like really, really close to each other in my quarterback rankings. I don't know them off the top of my head. But like, even if he's not coming off the injury, like Daniel Jones, I think it's super fair to put him probably anywhere between like 17th to like 23rd in the quarterback rankings, maybe like 15th to 23rd. And Cam Ward, I know that he's nowhere close to this in terms of like efficiency or accounting stats, but you watch him play last year. Like we watched the Saints game. He was making some absolutely insane plays in that Saints game. It was kind of unbelievable to watch. And he did that like fairly consistently at the back half of last season. And he really was not working with much at all.
Yeah.
Callahan was out of there in week 4 or something like that.
Early,
like kind of
very
just
early.
a complete joke of a season. And yeah, I feel for him. Like he's clearly very physically talented. Like he reminds me of, in terms of like playmaking, kind of like a cross between like a Jordan Love and a Kyler Murray. He kind of has like that similar play style, not nearly as quick as Kyler Murray, not nearly as accurate as Jordan Love, but if you kind of mesh those two and take them together, he doesn't run a lot either. But yeah, I do still think Cam Ward is going to work out. Maybe it's not on the Titans. Maybe he goes to a second team like we've seen with other guys recently. But yeah, I still believe in him. And then Daniel Jones, yeah, super efficient. Have kind of seen all different kinds of stuff from him out and throughout his career. It's kind of like abstract art. You can see whatever you want to see, and talk yourself into it. But when you're kind of all over the place and you're coming back from an injury, like I'm probably going to still lean on the young guy that I think is at has a higher ceiling, even if I don't expect Cam Ward to be more efficient than Daniel Jones just because of their offensive situations.
Yeah, and I will say this, like, it was so bad to where Cam Ward, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was Cam Ward who said we're ass at one point. Like, if you have a
Yeah,
quarterback that's saying that, like, you got to know the situation is just not, it's not great at all. So I think he'll be on the come
he
up
was
this
right.
year. Yeah, he was right. He'll be on the come up this year, but last year was not a good season for you to be like, oh, okay, I'm judging the quarterback based off this season. Just was not
Yeah.
really a great year for that. Moving on to running back here for the AFC South. At number 1, I'm gonna go with and we're kind of gonna give like running back room / top running back. Like for RB1, it's gonna be Jonathan Taylor, but I don't think DJ Giddens is necessarily a huge addition to that RB room. Jonathan Taylor himself
Don't disrespect
is
DJ Giddens.
a little bit, but no, I think Jonathan Taylor truly does level that thing. If Jonathan Taylor goes out, I'm not putting DJ Giddens alone above Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears and RB
Speak for
room.
yourself.
So, yeah, no, I'm talking to a
I'm
big
kidding.
DJ Giddens believer. You were a Giddens believer last
Oh
draft
yeah, I
process, right?
loved him. I think he was
That's
like
what I
my
thought.
RB5
He was up there. He was
last
up
year.
there
Yeah,
compared to consensus. Yeah, that's what I thought. But my
yeah.
RB2, my running back room 2 would be Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears. I do still believe in that running back room, even though it's not necessarily the greatest. It's not going to pop off the chart or pop off the piece of paper when you're reading on the depth chart. You're like, this isn't great, but they'll make plays for you. And I think when they're healthy, they're solid. I think both of those guys kind of get banged up at times. David Montgomery and Woody Marks can be my third. I don't necessarily love David Montgomery or Woody Marks, but they'll get you a few yards a carry at times, and they'll get you. David Montgomery will be the power back. He will be the effort running back. And I'm trying to find positive things to say because I have them above another running back room, but that running back room is just so bad that I just can't put it above this one. So David Montgomery and Woody Marks at 3. Basil Tootin and Chris Rodriguez and LaQuint Allen at RB4, running back room 4 in the AFC South. A lot of people are really high on Basil Tootin right now. I'm not really sure of why. I mean, he hasn't like proven himself yet, and everyone's kind of acting like he has. Chris Rodriguez isn't adding a whole lot to your offense. LaQuint Allen might be one of the best pass blocking running backs in the league. You got that as a positive, and shout out to LaQuint Allen. Sterb and I both loved LaQuint this past offseason. We're huge on him during the draft process, but shout out to the LaQuint believers out there. But yeah, that running back room is just it's not great. And I don't think that's propelling their team to victory. So they're going to earn that 4 spot. But what are your thoughts on that list, Sterb?
Yeah, I mean, these are probably the worst 4 running back rooms. Or sorry, not the worst 4 running back rooms in the
It's
league,
the
but the
worst
worst running
division.
back division in the league.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jonathan Taylor's pretty much the only like starting caliber running back that you feel good about here.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously I put DJ Giddens and then Jonathan Taylor as a change of pace back for him at number 1. And then at 2 and 3, I think it is kind of interchangeable just because Tony Pollard is like old and like wasn't as quite efficient last year. Like he had a lot of volume for fantasy. I know he had a couple decent weeks like towards the end. Tyjae, it's tough because I know we both really like Tyjae as well, but he's just not really shown the ability to stay healthy. And he is a smaller guy, but he's obviously a very talented receiver. But when I feel like his rushing is like super underrated. Like he has really good vision, cutting ability. He's not like the quickest guy, but he is kind of small. So like not the best combination of stuff there, especially with the injury concerns. I think I'm gonna stick with the Titans at 2. And then 3, I would have David Montgomery and Woody Marks. I just kind of think Woody Marks is pretty bad. He was really like the only back there. So I feel like the public opinion of him is very inflated. Although not so much with David Montgomery coming in. But yeah, he kind of just was a volume merchant last year. And like we mentioned with the Texans run game, it's really bad. It's not just the offensive line that's really bad. Woody Marks also just not good. like pretty bad vision, like ball security not there, speed not there. I mean, he can catch the ball. Sorry, Woody.
Yeah, this
Um,
is this is coming from a guy. Sturb, you have him in our one league in Dynasty, correct?
yeah, I think I drafted him in both my main dynasty leagues last
Yeah.
year.
And I remember
And
like
sure, yeah, like I
you.
understand like the volume play, but
Yeah.
I just don't. Watching him play is not a fun sight. Um,
Well,
yeah,
all this is to say that's above the fourth room. And so, what are your
yeah, it
thoughts?
is above the fourth room. Yeah, I'm with you here. I don't think we saw much from Bashal Tutin last year. Another guy that I drafted very heavily in fantasy. Wasn't super huge on him in terms of like real life, but you go to a Liam Cohen offense and you're going to be cheap. Like I'm going to take a look at you there. That was kind of the play. Now he's like the lead back and he's really getting priced
Yeah.
up. I'm like, I don't know. He's just not that talented. And do I have faith in Liam Cohen to get the most out of him? Yeah, I do. But in terms of like, we're ranking in terms of real life here. Like, obviously, I wouldn't take like Bashal Tutin. I don't think I'd take Bashal Tutin fourth out of the starting running backs. Maybe I would. I don't know. But I just don't think he's that good of a real life back. And then Chris Rodriguez, like, kind of just is what he is. He's like the replacement level's replacement level. Um, but yeah, this running back, these running back rooms are just not good.
It's not pretty. It's not pretty to say the least. And moving on from them, I think you have a slightly better divisional room here in the receiver core position. I think it's much better than running back room, but compared to some of the other divisions, it's still not necessarily the strongest. I would say, but I think that the top end teams are actually pretty solid, and then the bottom gets like questionable as a receiver core as a whole. But I'll break that down real quick. At number one, I have the Jaguars with Brian Thomas Jr., Parker Washington, Jacoby Myers. I think those three are all going to be extremely versatile and going to be utilized very well in a Liam Cohen offense. All three of those guys have pretty distinct roles that Liam Cohen can kind of slot them into. And if you add Travis Hunter maybe for a few plays on the offensive side of the ball game, that gives you a little bit more of a boost there too. But I think Parker Washington is getting criminally overlooked going into the season. I will say this. I will give my Parker
We
Washington
know you think that.
propaganda. Yeah, for everyone in the sleeper dynasty leagues I'm in, I've been on the Parker Washington propaganda just trail. But anyways, Brian Thomas Jr. should take a bounce back this season. He had a sophomore slump, had some questionable plays, right? Just like questioning his toughness, his hands, things like that. But I think we'll kind of see a little bit of a step up from that this upcoming season. And then Jacoby Myers, like you mentioned earlier, when we were kind of going through the teams, is just a reliable vet that you can kind of rely on as a decent route runner, great hands, and just that's a quarterback's best friend, right, in an offense. So you have that in addition to the two guys that can kind of do a little bit more and hit home runs for you as well. I think that really forms a good wide receiver trio. And number two, I don't know, this might be a surprise to some people, but I have Carnell Tate, Wandale Robinson, and Calvin Ridley at my number two spot above the Texans or in the Colts. But I think that Carnell Tate really is a great addition, and I think that he is going to be that true wide receiver one for Cam Ward to kind of do whatever he wants. Um, I think Carnell Tate is a decent route runner. We kind of talked about that right during the draft process. Pretty polished routes, but I think as a deep threat, and Cam Ward was kind of missing that this past season. That truly is a huge addition to that receiver room. You add Wandale Robinson, kind of more of the short game stuff, and I think Brian Dable will really just reutilize that like he did with the Giants for however many years Wandale Robinson was there with Dable. And then Calvin Ridley, I think last season kind of dropped off a little bit compared to his past seasons, but I think he'll still kind of be a solid vet for that receiver room. So give me the Titans or the Titans at number two. And then number three, give me the Texans. This is a team that is heavily brought up by Nico Collins. I think the other guys on this team, yes, you have a lot of solid young players. You got Jaden Higgins, Tank Dell, Jalen Noel. I think you have Xavier Hutchinson as well as also like a taller guy that I think you can utilize in the red zone, down the seam, things like that a little bit more. But Nico Collins is truly weighing this thing up because the other three guys that I mentioned aren't really lifting you up as a team. They're not really providing a whole lot. You can throw to them maybe 3 to 4 times a game, and maybe you're getting decent production out of them. but you're not relying on any of them to really save your team or your team during a game where you're down. Tank Dell is coming out back from injury. We'll see if he can kind of step back up to what he was once. Because if Tank Dell was fully healthy, didn't have that injury, I think this would be the receiver core number 2 for me. But I'll keep them at number 3 for now. Jaden Higgins hasn't really shown much. Jalen Noel didn't really show much last season either. But again, maybe that's due to the O-line being kind of not great, and CJ Stroud also just being worried to throw the ball, not and losing his fundamentals, not getting them the ball. So all things to think about there with the Texans room. And then finally at number 4, I have Alec Pierce and Josh Downs because there really isn't anyone else there in that receiver room for the Colts. We'll talk about the tight end room in a second, but the receiver room itself, there's really not much else there except for Alec Pierce and Josh Downs that I'm really even looking at on the Colts. Josh Downs will be a good fantasy value for all you fantasy players out there. I think you should be adding Josh Downs any league you get the chance to. But Alec Pierce is coming off of injury, and there's a few pictures, videos going out of his leg. It looks significantly deteriorated. The muscle in his leg doesn't look like it's nearly what it was before. That could hinder his performance this upcoming season. Yes, maybe for the future, if you're a dynasty owner, maybe he'll be back to what he once was this past season as a deep threat and as a kind of that all-around receiver one. But I don't really truly believe in that receiver room at all. And if you're relying on Alec Pierce and Josh Downs to save your team, I don't know if they can do it. So I'll put them at the bottom. But Sturb, what is your rankings for the receiver cores for this division?
Yeah, number one, I'm gonna have the Jags. I do think it's probably the best like top 4 receivers
Yeah.
probably in the league. Like your fourth receiver, arguably being any of BTJ, Parker Washington, Jacoby Myers, or Travis Hunter, I think
Yeah.
is pretty damn good. Um, would you maybe like a higher end, solidified certified top 10 guy? Sure, yeah. But these guys are really, really good, and they're all pretty dissimilar from each other. So you can kind of um, assign them however you want on a given play, and they can kind of be very complementary to one another. Um, and then at 2, I am going to have the Texans. I think Nico's enough to bring it up to 2. Jaden Higgins, like I was big on him during the draft process, but then in the NFL, like you kind of did see that the movement was just a little stiffer than you would have hoped to see in terms of a progression to the NFL. Um, in terms of Jalen Noel, I think he was really really good when he got on the field, but they just like didn't have him
Didn't
on the
really
field as
utilize
much
him. Yeah.
because yeah, he was really like kind of just like a vertical slot player, which he was mostly at Iowa State, but I think he flashed enough in college to show that you should at least give him a chance on the outside. And when he did, he was actually pretty good. But yeah, it's a little thin after Nico, but it's good enough for number 2 in this division for me. And then see if everyone was fully healthy and like the Alec Pierce injury concern wasn't getting like worse by the week or by the month, I think I would have them number 3 over the Titans.
Really?
Uh, yeah, I would. Yeah, Calvin Ridley, unfortunately, like
He did
a
not.
guy that I'd like to watch in his prime, but like last year it did get really bad. Like I've been fighting and advocating for the Calvin Ridley, like anti fall off agenda. Like he hadn't really fell off
Yeah.
that much. It was just his quarterbacks. Last year was not just his quarterbacks; it was him as well. Um, yeah, and then Wandale, like sorry, I'm just not a big Wandale guy. He did show like the ability to kind of win more downfield last year, but I got to see it for more than a few games. Um, and then Carnell Tate, like a super good receiver. I expect him to be probably like a very high end 2 or a low end number 1 in the NFL, but it is his rookie year. I understand that these especially Ohio State guys get off to a hot start. But it's not enough to bump them over, Alec Pierce and Josh Downs, who I think are Alec Pierce. It sucks because again, like kind of like that kind of Kenneth Walker situation where, I feel like we've been singing their praises for years, and then everyone's like, "Oh, he gets this huge contract, like he's a top 15 wide receiver," and I'm like, hold on,
Yeah, no, he's
settle
definitely.
down just a little bit now. Where I've just kind of been like here the whole time with him. And
Yeah.
like last year, everyone was here. This year, everyone's here. And I'm like, I'm still here. Um, yeah, Josh Downs. again, like you said, he's going to be a guy that I'm probably taking in every fantasy draft or trying to snag in every dynasty league that I can, because I think he's going to get a lot of targets this year.
Definitely.
He's probably going to be super productive. Like if he plays all 17 games, I think it's probably minimum that he gets 900 yards. I'd say that's like a generous like bottom bar to have for a guy that's going super late in fantasy drafts. We'll talk about fantasy later, but in terms of real life, they are going to end up number 4 for me, and then the Titans at 3.
Because their third receiver is Nick.
Nick Westbrook
Nick,
Akine.
yeah, Nick, yeah, like
Deion
that.
Burks. They got
It's just
Ashton Doolin as well.
just not
Yeah.
much. Maybe if they kept AD Mitchell, I'm looking at this room maybe a little bit
They
better.
should
I'm
have.
very like I get he kind of had a few bonehead plays. Like he kind of made mistakes. He wasn't the greatest, but like I think maybe you go into this season, you're like, okay, we at least we have AD
Yeah.
Mitchell to fall back on, but it's a rough receiver room for them outside of those top 2 guys. And I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought up the Alec Pierce thing. I think got extremely overinflated at times. Like last season, he had all those touchdowns, things like that, insane deep threat. But like, I don't know how much of that can translate
That
to
only
being a
kind of
true wide receiver one.
works well. Yeah, that only kind of works well with another kind of target hog on the team. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
when you
Yeah.
have a Michael Pittman for the team to also kind of focus on, like
Yeah.
that helps out. Josh Downs, I think maybe provides you a little bit of like some
He can
slack on
be
the
that, but they're
offensive end,
both
but
so far on ends of the spectrum, you know what I mean? Whereas
yeah,
like they
like
don't
it's
have like
very
a
different.
reliable over the middle target.
Yeah, and I think yeah, that it's just I'm not a fan of that receiver room. But for fantasy, Josh Downs, Sturb and I will be on that train all offseason,
Yeah.
so make sure to add him. Moving on to the tight end conversation. This one should be relatively quick because I think this is kind of like a crappier tight end division as well, outside of the number 1 dog on the list. Number 1 is going to be Tyler Warren. I think truly that does lift up. If you just want to kind of just add him into that receiver room for the Colts, that's kind of their third target, and that will be the guy that takes eyes off of Alec Pierce and Josh Downs because teams will have to focus on him across the middle. I think that kind of adds that over the middle threat a little bit for this Colts team, but you can't 100% rely on him. It does help having a receiver that you can put in the slot or out wide, be able to run in breaking routes consistently across the middle, crossers, things like that. But having Tyler Warren really does bump up that Colts offense a lot. At number 2, I'm going to have Brenton Strange, a guy that I really thought going into this offseason after the draft, I thought he was going to kind of be overshadowed by uh, is it Borkature or Bork? Yeah, Borkature, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think the Jaguars, the way they reacted, like they just hit the lottery when they picked him in the second round. When no, of course there were definitely teams that were looking at him in the second round because the Jags took him in the second round. But to all the outsiders, that pick really did feel like an absolute out of like just out of left
I
field
thought it was a
pick.
typo on my screen.
Yeah, we were all sitting there on draft night like, what the hell just happened? Because I don't think did any of us have him in our like top. I don't think any of us really had him in our
Nah.
top tight end list at all. And so it was
Yeah.
just an insane pick. And the way they acted kind of made me think that Brenton Strange wasn't going to be their top dog. But then he just got this big dollar extension. And so that really does show to you that he's the top dog for the Jaguars on offense. He will at least get some good targets and he looks successful. I think this upcoming season, he'll ascend a little bit more, but he does have all those other receivers to kind of take targets and things away from him. So for fantasy value, I don't necessarily think that is that great with all the other targets around him, but he's still probably the second best tight end in this class or in this division. Third, I got Gunnar Helm. I think you kind of saw a little bit of a flash from him last season. This season, I think he'll kind of ascend a little bit more. But again, third in this division, but still not very great. Fourth, I have Dalton Schultz, a vet that has kind of proven time and time again that, yes, if you give him targets, he can make something happen with it, but he's also just not extremely talented. Like I'm not picking this guy over any of these other 3 as young upcoming guys. I'm not picking Dalton Schultz above either of any of them to put on my team. So what are your thoughts on this list for tight ends?
Yeah, I think I would concur. Yeah, obviously 1 and 2, Tyler Warren and Brenton Strange. I think Brenton Strange is another guy that I do think gets pretty criminally underrated. But if you did have him in fantasy last year, like you probably tuned into some of those games and you're like, damn, this guy's actually like pretty damn good, even when he doesn't get the ball. Like his blocking, he's not just a receiving threat. Like obviously that's what he's more used as,
Yeah.
especially with Borkinger coming in. But I do think he can definitely hold his own there more than other pure receiving tight ends. And then he's actually like pretty decent after the catch. Like obviously not super nimble or anything, but just has pretty good, like almost like ball carrier vision. Almost, I don't really know how to describe it. Like he just has a knack for getting the yards after catch. Yeah, and then between 3 and 4, I think these are pretty close. Not in a good way. Like these are probably two of the worst starting tight ends in the league with Garner Helm and Dalton Schultz.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to lean on the vet here in Schultz and go him
That's
at
fair.
3. Yeah, Gunnar Helm, like I do think he showed some things last year, but he really wasn't a fantastic blocker in college either. And if I'm ranking you like above a vet, I kind of need to see a little bit of both. But yeah, he was actually like one of Cam Ward's more reliable weapons, which kind of speaks a lot to his situation last year. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go Schultz at 3, but I'm not gonna be mad if anyone has Helm over him like you do. So
Yeah, I think that's fair. They're kind of in a tier, like you were saying. Is they're kind of
yeah,
like just bottom of the like you're not relying on these guys. If you are going to the next season with these guys in your team, you're thinking, okay, how can we replace them with a free agent or someone in the draft? Unless Helm comes out and just proves that he's going to be an
yeah,
electric playmaker for years for this Titans. I think you're looking to replace him relatively soon. Moving on to O line, we're kind of just making this a comprehensive list of the whole O line. We're not really just going to go through position by position because that would take forever. And we're already 37 minutes in, and we haven't even gotten to the defense of the AFC. So
yeah.
I'll go through this pretty quickly here. O line at number 1, I got the Colts. Number 2, I got the Jaguars. 3, the Titans, and 4, the Texans. Those 2 at the bottom are I think they're teams that they're trying to add maybe a little bit of youth into the O line to try to kind of turn it around, but we haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen the turnaround yet necessarily for those 2 teams, so I can't put them above the other 2. The Colts, you got Quentin Nelson at least on your O line. You have a solid offensive line to protect your quarterback, whoever that is, for at least this season. The Jaguars, again, solid O line, but nothing extremely crazy. The Titans and the Texans were bottom of the barrel last season, and I haven't seen them prove anything. So they're in a tier of their own. I think if you could kind of interchange it however you want, but I think the Texans I would put below them. But just I haven't seen anything from them. If they turn around this season, they turn it around. But based off of last season and what they added this offseason, they're still going to be at the bottom of the division for me. What are your thoughts on the O lines?
Yeah, for the O lines, I think I would have the same rankings, but I would have the Texans third. Kind of ditto what you said with the Colts and the Jags. Like the Jags just have, very solid, like 70th percentile guys across the board. And if we're factoring in like, I guess like a portion of the offensive mind and how the O lines are used, then I'd probably put the Jags number 1, just because I said like with the run game coordination from Liam Cohen, it's pretty top tier. Like I think he season in season out has like a top 3 to 5 run game in terms of how he's deploying the players that he has. So yeah, I would go Colts, Jags, and then I would go Texans 3. So I know you said they haven't proved anything, which is true, but they did get a few band-aids. Like obviously they drafted Keelan Rutledge. They got Braden Smith
huge.
this year. I mean, they still have Trent Brown there. Like they have some depth for how bad of an offensive line they've historically been. Like they probably have like 8 or 9 guys that could theoretically start on day 1, which is kind of crazy. And when you have that amount of depth, like the odds of you having a winning combination are a little bit higher. It's not going to be great by any means, I don't think. But I think it's enough to put them above the Titans. The Titans have some young players that I do really like. Like I was super big on JC Latham a couple years ago. I think he can still be, a pretty high end tackle, not like any of the elite ones. But yeah, you got Skoronski there as well. Like they got some promising players, but outside of that, it's just really not great. And it also doesn't help that like we haven't seen them with good coordination, but also that's kind of just like a mystery box when you don't know what you're going to get and you've only seen the worst of it. So yeah, that's my 1 through 4.
moving on to defense here. Number one, Texans by a wide, I would say a wide margin.
Yeah.
Moving to number two, this is where it kind of gets a little. This is going to be a surprise to some people. I got the Titans at number two on my list. Anytime you go get a great defensive coordinator to be your head coach, I think that bumps up your defense a lot. But secondly, and the offseason, and you make as many additions as they did to the defense, I think it does bump it up a little bit. You still have Jeffrey Simmons to build around, and that's fine. You get Alontae Taylor, Cordell Flott. That should be an improvement to the cornerback room. And I think I'll say this: Alontae Taylor, I think I want to see how he performs as a true outside corner for the full season for this team, because there's times as a Saints cornerback you see him
Up and down.
up and down. He has his moments in the box. I think he's one of the top. Like if you put him in the box for full season, I think he's a top 10 box nickel corner interior in the slot. He's so explosive, and he's extremely physical, and he has the attitude to truly succeed as a cornerback. He wants to beat up anyone he plays across from. And I think that's extremely admirable from a defensive back. Outside of that, I think they're still building the defense. Anthony Hill in the draft, I think that helps you a little bit in the run game. And just as like a coordinator on the defensive side of the ball, I think he's a guy that you can kind of have that knows the game, things like that. I think that helps a lot. And number three, I'm going to have the Jaguars. You lose Devin Lloyd, and already their defense was kind of just average. I wouldn't say it was a great defense, but when you lose him, I think that bumps you down just a little bit. And then four, I had the Colts. I think all across the board, they have a bunch of all right players. I'm not completely sold on them. I think, yes, you added in the draft. Who did they add? I'm blanking on CJ Allen, and we were all very low on
Halsey,
CJ.
yeah.
And Halsey, I'm higher on than Allen as an addition for this draft class, because Allen, we all saw it during the pro day film, things like that. I think CJ Allen kind of got knocked down a lot of boards because he wasn't the most versatile athletic guy, and I think that kind of knocks him down for me. But I think the Colts are the fourth best defense. But Sterb, I want to hear your thoughts. Before the episode, you kind of got shocked when I said the Titans were my number two defense. I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I am kind of shocked by it. They ended up as my number 4 defense. I guess I'll start out with them. Like, I understand you're bringing in like a good defensive coordinator, but I guess I didn't really weigh that for defenses, which I probably should have. But yeah, when you look at like the roster, like I understand like Jeff Simmons, like I think top tier interior defensive lineman. Wow, that's a tongue twister. And then obviously, yeah, you add JFM. It's going to be pretty good on the defensive line, especially when you got Salah there. But then like Anthony Hill, I don't really trust him to be a starter at really any position at this point. Like he is kind of just an athlete. And when you're not really going to have like a huge vet presence in the linebacker room, I think that's a bit of a concern. Yeah. And the secondary is just like, yeah, I mean, Alontae Taylor and Cordell Flott being your outside corners, like one of those guys is losing on any given play. Like, unfortunately, it's just going to happen. Like, if it were me, I'm not signing Alontae Taylor to be a free agent.
The money
if I'm not going to put him at nickel.
Exactly. Yeah,
like that should be the
money.
Point. Yeah, exactly. To me, it kind of makes no sense. I mean, what do I know? But yeah, he's like you mentioned, he's kind of electric when he plays as a nickel defender. And then outside, like, yeah, we see a lot of corners be very volatile, but you have two of those guys now, and they're like volatile and they're like below average. So not really great combination there. And then yeah, I'll go back to number one. Obviously, I do have the Texans. I feel like there's not really I need to say a lot there.
Mm-hmm.
They got arguably better this year, which is scary. And then yeah, at 2, I do have the Jags. I know you lose Devin Lloyd, but they were actually they were pretty solid in terms of like overall EPA, not in terms of success rate last year, because they were causing a decent amount of turnovers. And obviously you do lose that capability when you get rid of Devin Lloyd. But I do think it's kind of a mindset thing as well. Yeah, they still have, high-end players like Trayvon Walker, Still have Josh Hines Allen there, like pretty solid. Cornerback room could definitely be better. I think unfortunately, I would like to see him kind of play both ways, but I do think we're going to see more Travis Hunter at corner this year.
Yeah.
Just in terms of need.
I mean,
like besides him, it's Monteric Brown.
Yeah, without him,
that's kind of it. Yeah,
without him, it was rough last season in the quarterback room. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they had Newsome, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they did last year, but then they lost. Well, and he wasn't even really that good last.
He came over and he was seen trailing receivers left and right as well. So
yeah, I don't know what happened to him because he was not that same player when he was in Cleveland. That's a shocker of a sentence. But yeah, I do still have the Jags at number 2, and then yeah, like you said with the Colts, like they got some decent players. They got Sauce, and then they kind of just got like 50th percentile guys across the board. Yeah. Besides that.
And Sauce is coming off an injury. So, like, I don't know if that necessarily changes anything, but.
Yeah, coming off an injury, but, like, these are some of the worst cornerback rooms in the NFL besides the Texans, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, that's my 1 through 4.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we broke down the teams as a whole already, but this is a division that outside of the Texans and Jaguars, I wouldn't expect too much playoff-wise from either the Colts or the Titans. Maybe the Colts if Daniel Jones comes back and JT stays healthy again for full season, that kind of bumps them up. But I wouldn't really expect a whole lot from either of those teams. Moving on to a different division here, we got the NFC South, our Saints division. And I want to say this, going into this, I think this is a division that because Hard Knocks went with a better team for actual Hard Knocks and training camp, I think this is a great candidate for in-season Hard Knocks for the upcoming year because I think you'll have maybe a 4-way battle, probably more of like a 3-team battle for the playoffs and the division lead title going throughout the season. I think this could be a really, really fun division to watch. And I think all 4 of these teams are younger at this point in time than they were a few years ago. They're all younger. They have young prospects to look forward to. And I think they're going to be an exciting division to watch for the upcoming seasons after this one. But starting off for the teams rankings, and I promise this isn't just bias here, but I have the Saints at number 1. Number 2, I have the Panthers. 3, I have the Bucks. And 4, I have the Falcons. I do think that the Saints have a true identity on offense at this point in time. You kind of have a guy you can build around. You go get Jordan Tyson. Your defense is at least solid with Staley there. And you have Kellen Moore at least to scheme up the offense to what he kind of wants it to be. And they were an extremely hurt team last year. You finished the season 5-4. You look positive. The Bucks finished pretty poorly. The Panthers made the playoffs, made a run with the Rams in the playoffs there. They're a team that's upcoming too. I think those are the 2 teams, the Saints, Panthers, will be the teams competing for the division, in my opinion. And then 4, you had the Falcons. I just don't believe in their quarterback room, and I'll break that down in a second. But Sterb, what are your thoughts on this division team-wise?
Yeah, so I think I am also going to go Saints at 1 to win the division. I
promise it's not biased. I promise.
Well, it might be a little biased for me, but I've seen other people do it that aren't Saints fans, so I feel like it's reasonable at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do just think we're going to have a really good offense, and then like defense kind of take what you can get there. Like I don't think we're going to push for like any actual competing in terms of like the playoffs. Maybe we get a game, but I don't really expect anyone from this division to win a game this year in the playoffs, obviously. And then
all teams 0 wins.
Yeah, all teams 0 wins. Yeah. Well, they'd have to have 6 ties in there.
Yeah,
that would be something. But and then like 2 through 4, I think you can kind of talk me into any order. And honestly, if I'm being unbiased, you can talk me into any order 1 through 4 as well.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'm kind of just going to reason it out and then come up with a 2 through 4 based off of vibes. This literally changes every day in my mind because I think about where the Saints could finish. Yeah. So I'll go with the Panthers next. You got the offense, like you got some weapons. Running back room isn't that great. We've seen some additions to the O-line. I think that's going to be pretty good. Dave Canales, I do have faith in as an offensive mind, but really it comes down to the quarterback position. Like I don't think Bryce Young is that good. He's shown us flashes of, kind of playing well at what I consider to be a little bit unsustainable, where he is kind of running around in the pocket. I don't think that caters very well to his build as a quarterback. Like I think if he does that, he's probably going to be more likely to be injured, as well as he is prone to take sacks as well because he's just so light, so small that if you get a hand on him, he's just going down.
Yeah.
Um, so it can kind of be a thread that teams pull on there. They did add some defensive help like Jalen Phillips and what else did they add?
Devin Lloyd.
Devin Lloyd, right? Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's going to be, pretty good on the defensive end. Like I would have probably picked the Panthers fourth if they didn't add those two guys, but it kind of just complicates things. The Bucks, honestly, I think I might put them at fourth. They kind of have added, yeah, they have added the least, well, outside of Ruben Bain.
The defense.
I'm talking in terms of, yeah, the defense, like it's just been so stale for so many years, and we've seen teams just progressively figure it out, and they just refuse to adjust. Unfortunately, like one of our favorite players gets drafted there in Ruben Bain. But this could be a year two breakout excuse for him. So it's just building into his character arc. So we're going to put the Bucks at 4. In terms of the offense, like you lose some reliability in Mike Evans, as much as we like to poke fun at him on this podcast. But we saw the coordination definitely take a step down from a guy we talked about earlier in Liam Cohen. I think it's kind of just going to be at that same level. You can't really return it back to what it was. And then Falcons, I just think like the secondary is honestly like pretty good. Like Watts, you got both the Terrell brothers there now. You kind of take what you can get from the front seven. Like it's not super good. It's not the worst. You got some criminals up there, but
if James Pierce is playing, maybe that's a positive. But
yeah, I don't know. I'm still not super huge on James Pierce. Like obviously the pressure numbers and the sack numbers were there, but he was pretty much just a DPR in terms of usage. And when they did put him on the field for rundowns, I mean, he just gets absolutely trampled. Like he's an active negative against any run concept like ever. So I think he's a little overrated in that aspect. Like he can really only come in on third downs and second and longs and whatnot. But yeah, I still think I'm going to put the Falcons third just because of their skill position talent on offense. And I realize that you don't have the quarterback to necessarily get the ball to them consistently. But like you just hand the ball to Bijan, he's going to get you to at least a solid offense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to go Saints, Panthers, Falcons, Bucks.
I think that's fair. I that was the kind of what I struggled with, was the third and fourth teams. I think Saints, Panthers was kind of like, I'm fine with it. I'm happy with that because I think those would be the two teams competing. But then those 3 and 4, that was really, really got tough. But like I said, I think halfway through the season, it could be a 4-way dogfight for a divisional winner. And then I think that would create a lot of fun content for Hard Knocks. So like that's why I said that would be. And obviously it's gonna be a shittier division. Like yes, you could choose
the pillow fight.
Yeah, you could choose a better division, right? And have a couple teams fighting for that division, but like who doesn't want to see shit back in Hard Knocks where you're just seeing crap teams and the coaches yelling at them? And
it's fair.
I missed some of the drama of shit teams being on Hard Knocks because I'm expecting just greatness from these teams that I'm watching now. And I don't know, it takes away from some of the fun of the show. But anyways,
if you don't want Tua and Kyle Pitts on Hard Knocks, what are you doing? You need to look yourself in the mirror.
You see Tua get knocked, like Tua learning how to fall, going to his dojo, learning how to fall on Hard Knocks. Like that is content I want to watch. That's what I want to see. But anyways, moving on to the quarterback conversation here. At number 1, I think there is a very real conversation for Tyler Shough to be number 1 quarterback in this division after the end of this past season. Should it be Baker Mayfield? Probably. And I'm perfectly fine if you put Baker Mayfield at the top. Sterb is not. Sterb is a very big Baker hater, and I think that's perfectly fine. But I think Tyler Shough, when you look at last season, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league on third and longs on a repetitive basis. He had it was a relatively large sample size that he had to prove it because our offensive line was pretty much dog shit and more beaten up. We didn't have anyone healthy except for the bookends on the tackles. Outside of that, you had no run game either, really. You didn't have, when Alvin Kamara was in, he wasn't really able to run the ball because they were relying on him to be an inside running back, and that really what isn't his forte. You had Devin Neal and Audric Estime at one point running the ball. So you had Tyler Shough. He needed a lot of demand. He was throwing for 300 passing yards. He was winning games, finished 5-4 to end the season when Spencer Rattler couldn't win more than one game through the first 8 or 9. So that's tough. Tyler Shough comes in, turns the team around with not a lot of help around him except for Chris Olave. Moving on, Baker Mayfield, my number 2. I think you could put him at number 1. I'd be fine with that. He's a reliable vet, has his moments. He's either extremely great for the first half of the season, and in the second half, he kind of just falls apart. It's like a Cinderella story. He's at one minute, he's the top of the top, and then the cream of the crop next, he's not. And so I think Baker Mayfield could be the number 1 guy, but he's also just kind of regressed at the end of every season so far. So I don't love what I'm seeing from Baker, but I do think there's a perfectly fine argument to have him at number 1. Number 3, I have Bryce Young because I do think he's shown flashes, like you said, when you broke down Panthers a little bit there. I think Bryce Young is a solid enough quarterback to win you games, and he did. And he almost, I will say this, he looked decent. There were moments in the Rams playoff game he didn't, but he at least got them to a point of where they had a chance to compete. He had that last minute drive to put them in the lead. And I think that's admirable from Bryce Young going down in the playoffs against the Rams, who are a really solid team. I don't see him doing that against this year's Rams team with Myles Garrett. I don't think he could do that again, but
he might die.
Yeah, he might die if Myles Garrett gets a sack on him. But anyways, that was admirable. So I put him at 3. Number 4, I'm going to have Tua and Penix just because both those guys, Tua, so banged up and out of his prime at this point. Maybe he can turn it around and prove us all wrong. That would be, honestly, this is one thing I will ever say about the Foul Clowns that's actually positive. I think if Tua does that, it would be admirable. He could be the comeback player of the year if he comes in and just lights it up with the Falcons and becomes a great quarterback again. Don't see that happening, though. But secondly, you have Penix, who just, I said this on draft night when it happened. I was huge on Penix going to draft night. He gets taken by the Falcons. I immediately said, I hope he does nothing in his career. I love the guy. Hope he does nothing. And that is terrible for me to say. But so far, he hasn't necessarily let me down in my hopes of he's not doing it with the Falcons. Hopefully he goes to a different team and turns it around like we've seen with Sam Darnold and some of the other guys. But that quarterback room, I just can't rely on them. So that's going to be my 4th QB room in this division. Sterb, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, for Penix, it's funny that you say you love him, but you hope he does nothing. That's kind of worked out perfectly for that statement for
Exactly.
his career so far. Yeah, I think I'm going to have the exact same order here. Yeah, I know we're going to get called homers for putting Shough above Baker, but
Sterb, hide
it
the
is,
sign. Hide the sign so they don't know.
Yeah, no.
Hide the
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I do think it is more of a Baker thing than a Shough thing. Like I think where I have Shough is maybe like 3 or 4 spots above consensus, but like in terms of where I have Baker, it's pretty low compared to consensus. And you guys are finally now joining me, which is awesome.
I wouldn't say I'm definitely not to where you're at. I think I'm just higher on Shough than a lot of people, but
we had Baker considerably lower than we did the year before.
Yeah, definitely.
And he was having that quote unquote MVP run for the first 4 weeks when he's just running hot on touchdown rate. But yeah, nothing really changed with Baker in terms of like 2024 to 2025. Yeah, his production was up and down because of his supporting cast, but like even before then, he was making backbreaking plays like pretty consistently, like he's kind of shown to. Yeah, he is just like a high wire act essentially, but he doesn't really have the down to down efficiency or the great traits to make up for that. Like other big game hunters do. Like big game hunters, you want like a Jordan Love who's going to give you the explosive plays and going to eliminate the negative ones.
Yeah.
Baker is
yeah. Every once in a while
he's not James
pumpkin on the field, but
yeah, okay, whatever. Every once in a while, yeah, sure.
Hammer, I'm sorry.
I tried to stick up for our boy. But yeah, you look at the stats like for Jordan Love, for example, he does really hunt those explosives and gets them at a high rate. He does not take sacks. For the most part, he doesn't turn over the ball. Just when he does, it looks very bad. Baker turns over the ball and just everyone gets hit with the Men in Black flash. Like no one ever remembers the next week. But yeah, I mean, he's not Jameis Winston, but it is kind of on that sliding scale between Jordan Love and Jameis Winston. He's closer to that Jameis level. in terms of how they're perceived in terms of or how they should be perceived in terms of their negative plays. Yeah, and then Bryce, we mentioned him before. Like, I think he's right on that like fringe starter tier. Um, yeah, it mainly just is like the size concerns for me. Like I do think when he's able to like be kept clean in a pocket, I think he's pretty decent. But also like he is very good at escaping the pocket, but like only if he doesn't get hit from that point on, which if you're outside of the pocket isn't very likely. Um, yeah, confusing quarterback. Yeah, and then Tua and Penix, I have the number 4. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory there. Like Penix, like you said, really not showing much. Tua, like I I get anything if I get like 3 solid games out of you this year.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's kinda where I'm at too, is like, maybe they show up and that's a positive, but I can't put them above the other guys who at least this past season looked decent when they were
Yeah,
playing. Moving on to the running back conversation. Number 1, I have, Chuba Hubbard, obviously, for this division. No.
of course.
Number 1 is gonna be Bijan Robinson, the Robinson, twins in the backfield. You got Bijan and Brian. Prayers to all the fantasy drafters out there. Do not somehow, on God's
Someone's
earth
gonna
God's
do
earth,
it.
I just don't. The ADP is so different. I really, if you're somehow end up picking Brian
Someone's
Robinson,
gonna search Robinson, I
I
guarantee you.
if you pick Brian Robinson over Bijan on accident, you're either 60 years old, you've never used ESPN Fantasy, or you're just an idiot. And I think you deserve whatever happens to you if you're that third option and you're just not paying attention. If you're 60 years old, you've never used ESPN, you get a pass, and maybe you can appeal to the commissioner.
You're
Hey,
terrible and you deserve
give
it.
yeah, if you're just the league taco and you're just not putting an effort just to not put an effort, I think you deserve it. But all the other 2 options, you're fine. Anyways, moving on to number 2, I have Travis Etienne and Alvin Kamara at this current point in time. If that running back room stays that way, I think that's a really great opportunity to be kind of similar, obviously different play style than the Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram running back duo, but at least gives you the vet presence in Alvin Kamara to kind of help with Travis Etienne be an all-around back like he can be. I think Travis Etienne has great vision in the pot in between the tackles, and I think he's shifty enough to make guys miss things like that or break tackles physically as well. Number 3, I'm gonna have Bucky Irving and Kenneth Gainwell. I think Bucky is a very solid young player for this team, but he was banged up this past season. I want to see him get back to health and then prove that he's the same guy he was before. Kenneth Gainwell, solid in the pass game. We saw that with the Steelers this past season. He was a reliable guy in the pass game for them. But outside of that, I don't think he's necessarily bumping them up any notches. Maybe you could debate me having them over the Saints running back room. I'd be fine with that. Number 4 is going to be Chuba Hubbard and Jonathan Brooks. Just not much proven from them there. I would replace Chuba Hubbard with any of these guys previously on the list, except for Kenneth Gainwell and Alvin Kamara and Brian Robinson. But you're definitely not putting him above the running back ones of the rest of these teams. And then Jonathan Brooks, been injured. I haven't seen anything from him, so I can't put him above any of the other guys. So that's my list. Sterb, what is yours?
Yeah, it's gonna be the same for me. Yeah, Bijan is probably just enough to get this room to
Yeah.
be the best running back room in the league in my mind. Yeah, and then Brian Robinson, like fairly good running back too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah, number 2, I am gonna have the Saints. Like you said, Travis Etienne and Alvin Kamara. I think that's a pretty solid duo. Like they're both a little older, like not the fastest guys, but Etienne is like enough of a slasher, like in between the tackles. And then if you want to throw some swing passes to Kamara in there, like I think that's perfectly
Yeah.
reasonable for being the second running back room in this division. Yeah, and then 3, like Bucky, got to see it from him again. Like his first year, it was really like a period of like 9-ish games where he was really good,
Mhm.
and he was super efficient in that workload. But I kind of just got to see it. Like this past year when he played, I believe he played like 3 like full games where they
I'll
were
check
giving
for you.
him like I want to say like 15 plus carries. But
Let's
he
see.
looked just okay in those. Yeah, but I know he played more than that. I think he played like 7-ish games, but there were only like 3 where he had a good amount of carries like he was expected to have. Um,
He
but yeah,
played
Kenny G.
surprisingly, he played 9 games, but like you said, in all the games where he had kind of like 15 carries, he
Yeah.
didn't look necessarily explosive. Like he didn't look insane.
He only had like 3 or 4 of those games, right? Where he had like 15
We had
carries or so.
above 15. Yeah, above 15. He had 1, 2, 3, 4. He had 6, but let me say this:
Okay.
in 2
I
of
guess I
them,
just misremembered.
no, but that's perfectly fine. But you were right on the mark of when he did have the carries, he wasn't doing much with it. When he had 25 against the Jets, he only had 66 yards. 26
Yeah.
carries against the Panthers, he ended up having 85 yards. But on 26 carries, that's nothing crazy. And then really the one game where he was explosive was against the Eagles, where he had 5 catches in the pass game for 102 yards,
Yeah.
but just really was not extremely explosive for them.
Yeah, yeah, up and down for him and, like, coming off of injury, like, 2 separate injuries in that whole situation last year, like, you can still have faith in him, like, I'm not gonna knock you for having faith in him as a player, like, I think when he was on the field, he obviously looked pretty good. I don't know if he
Mhm.
was, like, a top 5 to 8 back or anything, um, but yeah, you can definitely talk yourself into, him being kinda right back to where he was by mid-year this year,
Yeah.
but not enough to, get that running back room over the Saints, in my opinion. Yeah, and then 4th, I got Chuba and Jonathan Brooks. I still have a bit of a light on for Jonathan Brooks. Like he was a guy I really liked coming into that draft. I believe that was 3 years ago now, or 3 draft
Yeah.
classes ago
Yeah.
now. Yeah, I think he was a really really good receiver in college, and I thought to be a bit of an underrated runner. Like I think if he is fully healthy and he's back to 90% of what he was supposed to be as a prospect, I think he's going to take it over from Chuba Hubbard
Probably.
relatively quickly. But with so many injuries, like that, the odds of that are
It's
not very high. So yeah, I got that at 4.
moving on to receiver rooms here. I think it's a pretty fun receiver division if I'm being honest, if you're kind of looking at each team, but
Yeah,
starting off at number 1, I got the Saints again. Again, I promise I'm trying not to be a homer here. There's no bias, but when you have an all-pro leading your receiver room and you follow it up with a top 10 pick of a guy that if healthy, and that's the big asterisk there, if healthy, could be another star for this offense that will bump you up the board. So give me the Saints with Chris Olave, Jordan Tyson, and then I threw in Devon Vele there as well on the 3rd and longs when Tyler Shough was one of the better 3rd and long quarterbacks in the league. When Devon Vele was healthy, he was the guy he was targeting in multiple contested catch scenarios. He made the plays, so I think he's going to be a solid 3rd down guy for the Saints. Number 2, I have Amika Egbuka and Chris Godwin, or Amika Egbigbu, I should say. Thanks, Gronk. But I think those 2 are going to be solid players for that team. Ted Hurst is another guy to look out for the Bucks on the offensive receiver depth chart. But moving on to number 3, I have T Mac, Coker, and Chris Brazel. I think that's a fun receiver room. If you can get more from Jalen Coker this season, he's a guy that's been slowly going under the radar, improving year after year, and looks pretty damn good when he gets the football. So he's an
he's good.
exciting guy. I know there's all the coke heads out there that truly do believe in him, and I'm slowly becoming one of them. And since I'll be living in Charlotte, I'll be going to the Saints Panthers game. I'll maybe see the coke heads go crazy in real life. That would be fun. Hopefully not though. Hopefully the Saints shut him down. But anyways, Chris Brazel as well as a good addition to that receiver room. Um, so no complaints there. I think that's a solid receiver room. If you're Bryce Young, you're not complaining about throwing to those 3 guys. Finally, you got the Falcons with Drake London, who, yes, if you want to say Drake London is single-handedly carrying you above the Panthers depth chart, maybe. But outside of that, I really just don't love what they got going on. You have Jahan Dotson, Olamide Zaccheaus. Like, you got Zachary Branch in the draft. Congratulations. You got a guy that is a gadget that might not necessarily end up being anything in the NFL. Outside of that, it's just Drake London in the receiver room. We'll talk about the tight end in a second, but I just don't believe in that receiver room. So give me them at 4. But Sterb, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I am gonna have we're gonna get called homers. Yeah, I do have the Saints at 1 again. Chris Olave, I think he's finally starting to get the recognition that he deserves. Like people just kind of latch onto a narrative and don't really watch the player play. but
Yeah,
mainly
Derek
when you
Carr
bring up,
Derek Carr and Andy Dalton throwing him the
yeah,
football too.
I mean, you bring up Chris Olave to anyone in the past like 3 years, and they're not even mentioning his level of play because they don't. I don't really blame them for not watching the Saints the past 3 years, but it is literally like concussions is the only thing that they talk
Mhm.
about. Kind of understandable, but he's also like a really, really good receiver. Yeah, and then Tyson obviously got a pretty crazy ceiling if he does work out. Yeah, injury concerns kind of
They're real.
starting to
They're real.
show. Yeah, kind of starting to show up a bit already, which you don't love to see. Um, yeah, and then number two, I'm gonna have the Panthers, like T Mac,
That's I
arguably
respect
enough
that.
to
Yeah.
just get them to number one on this list. Yeah, and then obviously I'm a huge Jalen Coker fan as well. Brazil or Brazel, not super big on him, but like T Mac, I think he's going to be like a true number one. Like
Mhm.
maybe he doesn't have like the same high end output. Even last year, I thought he was way better than his stats showed, and even his stats
Yeah,
were
it was
really really
weird.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, quarterback.
You have
Um,
Bryce Young throwing but even then it was like they're just not throwing in the ball as much as they should have. Like he was
yeah,
getting open consistently
I
and they're just
think
not throwing the ball.
yeah, I think they started or they wanted to start him out slow at the beginning of
Mhm.
last year, and you could see like they just weren't going to the ball with him. And then at like week six, they were like, "All right, we're just gonna start doing what works for us." Um, and yeah, still like his stats weren't anything like eye popping in terms of not in terms of rookies, but across the league as a whole. I think they really kind of could have been that if he
Mhm.
had a better quarterback. Yeah, couldn't really be higher on T Mac as a player. Um, yeah, and then third, I'm going to have the Falcons. I do think Drake London is probably good enough to get you above the Bucks wide receiver room. It is kind
Respect.
of just a Mecca Ibuka, and then litany of guys that
Godwin.
could
Godwin
could be.
still has something in the tank.
I
Still
know,
got
but
something.
like I don't know if he's got anything left in the tank, to be honest. Like last year when he was on the field, I think he had like maybe a couple good games, but he did really look like he had aged quite a lot, which is reasonable.
With the injury, yeah. I
Given that
mean,
given that he was coming off of pretty frequent injuries. So I'm not really expecting much out of him this year. And then you got
mhm.
like Tez Johnson, Cameron Johnson, um, Ted Hurst as well. Yeah, I understand that like they got some names and the odds of them or the odds of one being like a solid number three or number two even is like relatively high, but I do just think Drake London is pretty considerably above Emeka Egbuka at this point in time. So yeah, uh I would go Saints, Panthers, Falcons, and then Bucks.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that list. It was kind of tough because it depends on how you evaluate like the young talent and then the like the guys
Yeah.
behind him. Because T Mac, like you said, if you really do value him, I mean, he alone could bump him all the way up the list. But it was weird the usage with the Panthers. I want to see him be more used, and I promise that's not because I have him in Dynasty. That's not the only reason why. But um, as a Saints fan, I don't want to see it. But as a Dynasty owner, I would love to see more T Mac usage. But anyways, moving on to tight ends for the NFC South. At number one, I have Kyle Pitts. I'm going to kind of run through this pretty quickly because I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Number two, I have Juwan Johnson. Three, K. Dotton. And then four, Tommy Tremble or Jatavion Sanders, kind of whoever ends up being that number one guy for the Panthers in Carolina. But I think those are it's pretty much straightforward list. If you look at production, that would be the list. If you look at kind of just ceiling, I think that's a straightforward list. But what are your thoughts on that, Sturb?
Yeah, I do think it's kind of like a Russian nesting doll situation, like we kind of said last year. Like all these guys are
Mm,
pretty clearly better than one another. You could maybe argue K. Dotton over Jawan Johnson, which I would kind of understand, but I do think that Jawan Johnson's game to game ceiling is higher than K. Dotton's.
yeah.
K. Dotton has shown to be pretty reliable when he is like their number two, which has been
Mm.
relatively frequent given their receiver injury history. Um, but yeah, I don't think he's just kind of just super replaceable. Whereas Jawan Johnson can at least on a play by play basis or a game by game basis
He
really
could
kind
change,
of
yeah.
make a difference in your offense. Well, and then he can go
Depend
quiet for
Yeah,
another 4
depending on
weeks.
which Juwan Johnson you're getting that week, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, it really depends.
But don't worry,
But yeah,
Oscar Delp is here to save the day, Sturb.
he's on the way. He's coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with your 1 through 4 there.
Yeah. And the Panthers again, like that tight end room, I'm
Yeah.
really just not excited at all for that. Like you got to go get a guy
Yeah.
next year if you can. Moving on to the offensive line room, again, kind of just going through this pretty quickly. I got the Bucks at number 1. Number 2, I have the Saints, and I think that will surprise some people. But if you look at the depth chart, when you add a guy like David Edwards, the only thing weighing down the offensive line is Cesar Ruiz right now. Outside of that, you have 4 guys that I think are extremely solid. I think above average to average at worst. I think you kind of have 4 guys out of the 5 positions there, so that's why they're at number 2. Number 3, I have the Panthers, and then 4, I have the Falcons. So, what are your thoughts on the offensive line group, sir?
Yeah, I think this is pretty clear 1 through 4, to be honest. Like, I think they're all kind of in separate tiers from each other, even more than the tight ends that we previously just listed. Like Bucks saw across the board, like you said, with the Saints, only one real weak link. Panthers made some additions, and then Falcons, like they are kind of getting older and like a little worse at some positions. So, yeah, we'll see. But I feel like it's pretty clear in terms of like a 1, 2, 3, 4. Like I don't really feel strongly about switching any of these teams within each other.
Moving on to the defense here, with something you said earlier, I think we're on polarizing sides here. I had the Bucks at number 1 on my defensive list for this division. I think that's a little bit different than where you're at. I think adding Trotter and Bain in the draft really did kind of it just kind of made me worried about this defense, just because Bain will be a force of nature in both the run and pass game. And I think Trotter, even though he cannot defend a pass to save his life, he in the NFL, please, whoever his coordinator, his linebacker coaches, please tell him that he can turn his head. Please, I'm begging
No,
you.
don't.
You can't. You can scan the field. Like you were able to do that.
Oscar Delp will be sitting approximately
Right behind
3
him.
inches behind him, just going like this,
and will be
and
wide
you
open.
won't be able to tell what's going on.
It is absurd. But in the run game, he's an absolute force of nature. They added Alex Anzalone, who Saints legend in the past. Solid all around linebacker for you there. Number 2, I'm gonna have the Saints. I think with Brandon Staley. Last year we were a top 10 defense and we didn't really have shit. We do lose Demario Davis. So like, yes, you lose Demario, you lose Delonte. That's a little bit of a bump down. But I think Chase Young will take a little bit of a step up. And I think the rest of the team is just kind of solid enough for Brandon Staley to coach him up to a level of you're like, okay, I'm all right with this defense. They'll be above average. And if they play that way, that's why they're the number 2 team on this list. Number 3, I have the Foul Clowns here. A positive for them. They're number 3 on this one. Outside of tight end room and in the running back room, they were pretty low on our boards, on my board at least, across this board here. But I think that they have a solid defense. You brought up earlier, the defensive backfield is pretty strong, and it's a younger group. Their front line solid, not anything crazy, but maybe if Pierce is there as a pass rusher, you're getting pressure pretty consistently. Number 4, I have the Panthers. They did add Devin Lloyd, and I think that's a huge addition for this defense. Who am I missing there? I think they had made another Jalen Phillips. Jalen Phillips. That's who they had. Yeah, that's 2 big additions there. If both of those pan out, that could be huge for them. But I just am leaving that number 4 because I don't know if the Devin Lloyd move immediately bumps him up my board, because Devin Lloyd is kind of, before his past season, didn't really show a whole lot as a linebacker. This season, he really did step up big time. So I want to see what he does this upcoming season before I really bump him up my board because of that. Jalen Phillips, again, kind of like average end. He has flashes, but I don't necessarily think that he levels up your defense a whole lot. But what are your thoughts on the defensive side of the ball, Sturb?
Yeah, this is really interesting, and I think about these defenses a lot as well. Like this is kind of like been deemed like the carnivore like circus division in the past, because you get random Thursday night games where I want to say it was like the Bucks and the Falcons like 2 years ago just absolutely felt like there was no defense being played at all. It felt like there were 7 guys on each defense. We're kind of seeing some defensive improvements along the board as a division, but they're all kind of like swapping in and out in very, very different ways. So I guess it is just kind of like a test in terms of like how you view defensive teams being built out. So I think we're gonna have 4-1 swapped actually. So I think I'm gonna have the
Interesting.
Panthers at number one. Um, so they have a pretty decent front line. Obviously, you have Derek Brown there.
Yep.
Scorton showed a lot of promise last year, especially down the latter half of the year. And then like Mike Jackson, J.C. Horn, like probably one of the better cornerback duos in the NFL.
But you know who slays J.C. Horn? Chris Olave.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yes, J.C. Horn.
Honestly, perfectly reasonable. You can get sliced by the best receiver in the NFL any day and still be a great corner. Anyways, I do think they got kind of the rug that ties the room together in Devin Lloyd. I know he's older, but you're getting a very, very good centerpiece of a defense. Well, I guess not centerpiece if he's not the highest paid player, but like I said, just kind of the glue that ties the front and the back end together. And Devin Lloyd, I think he's on like a criminally low contract for what he is as a player.
Yeah. Why did the Jags not pay?
I don't know. I don't know why 31 other teams didn't pay him. Anyways,
makes no sense.
Yeah. Jalen Phillips as well hasn't shown like a true ability to like stay healthy or consistently just produce at like a high level. But when he is on the field, it's pretty good in terms of just like pure pass rushing. So definitely, it's not hurting your team when he's on the field. Definitely not. Yeah, and then 2, I think. See, 2 is tough. So 2 and 3. It's between the Saints and the Falcons for me. 2 kind of very different defenses. It feels like. I think I'm gonna go with
top 10 in EPA, top 10 in EPA on defense.
Yeah, I know. I think I am gonna go with the Saints. Like I just really can't trust the Falcons front line enough, even if I do think their secondary is pretty clearly ahead of what we have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't love our secondary right now, but we're kind of just solid across the board. Like I don't think any of these defenses are great. Like I don't think I'd have any of them in the top 10 if we were ranking the entire league. But Saints are probably somewhere along the lines of like 17th, 18th in my mind going into the season. I know top 10 in EPA, but we're also playing it's not a great schedule.
And they didn't look great. Like it was not great watching the defense. Like they were giving up.
Yeah, you would not have been able to tell. You would not have been able to tell we were top 10 in EPA. Yeah, most of that isn't schedule adjusted, and when you're playing like the NFC South,
they're doing it again this year. So stay tuned. Yeah.
Well, I think our schedule is harder because of the divisions we play this year, but
it's a little bit, but it's still second easiest in the league apparently. So
yeah, we'll see if we're top 10 in EPA again. But I'm gonna have the Saints 2. I'm gonna have the Falcons 3 for the reasons that I mentioned, and then I am gonna have the Bucks 4. Maybe this is just like what I mentioned earlier, like a second year breakout, just hedge for Trotter and Bain, my boys in this draft. Unfortunately, going to the team that I probably hate the most, maybe the second most. Yeah, it does suck. But like I said, with the coordination, it is honestly just laughably bad. And even if you do have like supremely talented players, do I trust a poor defensive coordinator to know how to develop Josiah Trotter or what to do with them? I don't know. So it could be another year of him kind of having those same struggles, or honestly, this whole defense having the same struggles that they did. Todd Bowles hasn't really shown any ability or even want to adapt. Zion McCollum has gotten progressively worse. I know like 2 years ago that
he had some flashes.
Last year it was pretty bad. But yeah, you got Antoine Winfield there. Obviously, you got Vita Vea. Kalijah Kancey was pretty solid last year, but again, like in terms of comparison to like 2 years ago, not really what you want to see, like kind of a lateral move at most, if not a little bit of a step back. And yeah, when you have players that like aren't actively ascending, or in this case do need some development, and the coordination is just so bad, it's just stale as hell. I don't have a lot of faith, and that's enough to get it fourth in this division. In terms of like talent or like long-term projection, I would obviously have them hired like pretty much strictly because of Bane, and then everything else is gravy. But in terms of like this year, I do think Bowles will probably be fired.
You should be.
They pretty much have to win the division. I don't know why they really haven't already. Like obviously, if you go back and keep Cohen, I mean, yeah, should have done that. But yeah, the Bucs are going to end up fourth for me.
And it could end up being, they part from both quarterback and head coach. I could see them moving on from Baker. If you once again like don't do anything, like it could be time. But anyways, Sterb, finally ending the episode here. What are your thoughts? Where would you rank the divisions? We're gonna have our top 8 divisions ranked by the end of these this series. But who would you say is the better division between the NFC and AFC South?
I would go AFC South above NFC South.
Yeah, I would as well. I think the top 2 teams there are both pretty solidly probably above the Saints and the Panthers here.
Yeah.
I think both of those teams would beat them one-on-one, and I have no qualms at all with that. So that'll do it for this episode. You guys know where to check us out on social. Oh, I'm dying, Sterb. I just died for a second. I apologize to all of the listeners out there. But anyways, you guys know where to find us at social media at Jenks Island, wherever you get your podcasts at Jenks Island as well. And we'll see you guys next week, I believe, with the AFC and NFC East. So make sure to stay tuned for that next week.